Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Almond Delights Reading Corner by way of Mount Bentley Christian Church. Come on in, saints, can'ts, ain'ts, and wants. Welcome to this week's read of Between Pews by yours truly, Mr. James Colwell. Please go over to Amazon.com and download your books today so you can read along with us. Come on in. Sit back here with us on the back pew as we find out what they're doing up there between the pews. Let's enjoy this read. Are you ready? I am upset. Welcome you guys to another episode of Almond Delights Reading Corner. So we gonna run that back, honey. Welcome into this place. Welcome into this broken vessel. I am upset, honey. But anyways, we're going to begin reading this week Between Pews, a novella by James Colwell. I hope you guys got your books. Y'all already know how this goes. The read will be between 30-45 minutes. We'll see what we can get from there. Hopefully between about 2 chapters. I hope you guys enjoy the read. And heavy on the disclaimer, there will be some choice words in this book that Almond Brown would not normally say. But since I'm reading this book, honey, I'm going to give you all of the book, honey, the whole essence of this book. So I hope you guys do enjoy the book. Sit back, relax. If you have not shared the video, why? So we're going to begin reading, y'all. This book is dedicated to all those who have turned to the church in search of safety and fellowship. But once you arrived, all you discovered was full of Chapter 1. Welcome to the Bird. My name is Edwin James, and I am originally from the Baltimore, Maryland area. I'm a freelance journalist and have done very well for myself in the past 12 years. I have been offered a management position with a new magazine in the Pennsylvania area. It's been 2 months since I moved to Pittsburgh, and I've met a couple of folks. But the one person that stands out in my downstairs is my downstairs neighbor, Miranda. She is a bit of a spitfire. She's 26 years old with no children and a decent job. Miranda is about 5 foot 6 inches tall. She has a small waist and good tits. She is very pleasant to the eye and has a personality to match. She has the spirit of the outgoing. On the first day I moved into this apartment building, she came right up to the door and introduced herself while the movers were carrying my things in. I could tell that she was sniffing. All that testosterone tapped into the bloodhound in her and brought her running. She carefully scanned and sized up each of the movers and me. Let's just say my friend Miranda knows what she likes and understands what she's working with, and she considers herself young, free, single, and more than ready to mingle. As I ran out later that evening to grab a few groceries, I noticed one of the moving trucks had returned. I looked around for a moment and didn't see any of the movers, so I continued on to the store and thought no more about it. When I came back in and passed Miranda's door on the first floor, I couldn't miss the great time that was being had by her and the owner of an extremely deep voice. I won't lie, I got pretty tickled and stood there in the hall for a moment and listened as my neighbor instructed her guest to dig her out, with warning of an oncoming explosion. I shook my head, laughed, and ran up the stairs and proceeded to my apartment, saying to myself, must be nice. The next morning, as I was leaving for work, I again noticed the moving van still in the same spot. I sat in my car for a moment, checking to make sure that I had all the documents in my briefcase that I needed for the day ahead. As I wrapped up my things with the satisfaction that I was all set, I closed my briefcase, placed my seatbelt in place, and just as I went to pull out from my parking space, out of the front door of the apartment complex walked a chocolate-covered Adonis. He stood about 6 foot 3 inches tall with bow legs and a washboard stomach. He wore 5 thick cornrows to the back of his head without a strand of hair out of place. Every feature in his face looked as if it were chiseled by an artist. I tried not to stare, but it was a little hard to do. Within seconds, he was walking directly in front of my vehicle. He looked directly into my face, and as his left eyebrow raised, we both recognized each other. He was definitely one of the movers that came in to move my things the day before. He walked around to my window. As I rolled it down, his deep voice rang out, "Good morning, sir." He extended his hand for a shake, and I obliged. I immediately became a little flustered at the strength of his grip. I replied, "What's up?" while trying to keep the eye contact at the eye. My goodness, what a struggle that was. He said, "It feels great out here this morning. Your first name was Ed or Edward, right?" I said, "Almost. It's Edwin. Edwin James. And thank you for the great job you guys did moving me in yesterday. Everything went very smoothly. I appreciate that." He responded, "Sorry about that, Mr. James. I'm bad with names sometimes. I'm glad you used our company to move you. My name is Rafiq Jerry, and you were about the easiest client I've ever dealt with for the whole 3 years I've been doing this job. Usually, people are real picky and fussy and hanging all over the movers to the point that we can't get our work done. And you have some real nice shit." He dropped his head in embarrassment, then continued, "Excuse me, I'm working on my mouth." I thought immediately to myself, I can definitely help you out with that. I laughed out loud and said, "Don't worry about it, Rafiq, and you can call me Ed." I then noticed that he had not let go of my hand, and the handshake was well over with. He said, "Cool, you're new here, right?" I replied, "Yep, I am." He said, "Cool, maybe we can hook up and I can show you some sights. I don't live very far from here. I live right over on the west end. I can get over here in the north side in a matter of minutes." I said, "That's nice of you. I guess I have to take you up on that. I'm surprised though. What were you doing in Maryland?" He laughed and said, "Didn't you notice the last name on the moving company? Jerry's Moving? There are two Mr. Jerrys. One is my dad and the other is my uncle. I float back and forth. My family is here in Pittsburgh and my uncle's family is in Maryland. My dad runs this end and his bro runs that end. Me and four of my cousins split up our time between the two places. It's cheap to do it that way because we can stay with family and it doesn't cost the company anything. Funny thing is, it's not often that I get the trip from Baltimore area to Pittsburgh. It's usually the other way around." I said, "I'll bet. But I was offered a job that I couldn't refuse. I can go home to party if I can't find somewhere to party around here in this quiet little town." He said, "Watch it. It's not all that quiet. We got to hook up, playboy. I'm going to let you get off to work." He finally let go of my hand and reached in his pocket for his cell phone and said, "Ed J, give me your digits and I'll hit you up later." I laughed and said, "Ed J?" He smiled a smile that damn near blinded me, coupled with the sun, and said, Yeah, I like that for you. It fits you with your soft ass hands and shit. I acted as if I didn't notice the last part of the comment as I put my cell phone number in the phone. I knew right away that Mr. Rafiq Jerry had picked up on the fact that I bat for the other team. And I wasn't 100% sure that I was pretty convinced that he was batting for both teams. I handed the phone back to him. He took it and locked my name and number in. He flashed that damn smile again and said, "I'm going to hit you up later, alright?" I smiled and said, "Okay, that's cool." As he turned to walk away, I lustfully looked in the sight of all of took in the sight of all that he had to offer. I told myself, don't put too much into that. He has already shown that he is sexually charged. He's a sexually charged free agent, and that can be an opening for a lot of confusion, which I can't stand. That first day at work literally got started 2 minutes after I stepped in the door and was reacquainted with the folks in the office. I hadn't been given a whole lot of time with folks I'd be managing at the magazine. The nice thing about my job is I would be managing a group of writers, some freelance and some were actually on staff with the magazine. With that, it allowed me a steady paycheck and the opportunity to work from home in the field, which opened the door for travel. Hallelujah. I could continue writing novels on the side as well. I was very happy with my current circumstances. The only thing was the move. I absolutely did not want to move to Pittsburgh. In Baltimore, there was always something to do, and I could constantly have something published in several publications in the area. This was going to be a bit of a stretch in this calm, family-oriented area. After sitting still at my desk for the first time of the day, I realized it was 6:30 p.m. and I had left my phone on the desk most of the day and wouldn't know it was there. And wouldn't know there were 3 missed calls from Rafiq and a voicemail. Okay. I called in the voicemail and there was that very white tone declaring, "Hey homie, you must still be working this shit. Hit me up when you get this." I laughed and thought, geez, this is like some school stuff. And now I'm sure he's a switch hitter. Who calls that much that isn't interested? That's cute, I guess. I intended to call him from the car on the way home, but as I got in the car, my phone rang out with a call from my brother Ted in Virginia. I answered to his wiped out voice. "Eddie Jimmy, what's going on?" He has called me that since we were kids. He would always tease me about having 2 first names. It was so hilarious that I didn't realize until I was 10 years old that he had 2 first names too. I said, "What's the matter, Teddy Jimmy?" He said, "Don't fucking play. I'm still tired from helping you pack all that bullshit. My arms are hurting and my legs are sore, but I'm on my way to the gym." I said, "Such dedication. It's a shame you have the same amount of dedication to an ice cream smoothie." He said, "Ha ha, very funny. You have your vices too." I felt like that was a great segue, so I went right in and explained the morning's strange meetings with Rafiq. My brother was undeniably straight, but we were very close and there weren't many things that we didn't discuss. In his normal fashion, Ted quietly listened, then took a second to assess the information and came up with, "Don't make me have to come out there and bust Fiki's ass. That nigga sounds like trouble. If you want my advice, and I know you didn't ask, I would smash the neeby slut on the first floor and then see if they wanted to do a threesome." I laughed loud and said, "How the hell did you come up with that?" He said, "Huh?" With his "I don't know why you ain't following what I'm saying" voice. What's to know? They both want some dick. I said, you're dumb, Ted. I'm sure she don't know that nigga is on some old down low shit." Ted replied, "She didn't waste any time to make sure that nigga wasn't before she gave him some skins. And what? Were you putting on a hard act when she was up in your face?" I said, "You know I don't do all that. I'm me 24 hours a day. She just fell for the good looks. You know, the ones that my dad didn't give you." With a chuckle, he said, "I ain't no ugly nigga, but they knew what they was doing. They gave me some all right looks and an anaconda. Because they knew I was going to be drilling holes in these holes. I said, whoa there, Tonto. I ain't lacking or slacking. I'm giving out a few cases of strep throat, and I've been up the broke. They backed me out in a time or two. We both exploded into laughter. After about 3 minutes of cracking up, my brother said, okay, little dude, all jokes aside, I'm just saying, be careful with that nigga Fiki. I don't trust his ass, and I don't want to have to come down to the bird and lay hands on him. I snickered and said, oh, so now you a preacher? He replied, absolutely. They call me the honorable Reverend Payne. And I have a calling in the area of ass whooping for the Lord. I bust out into laughter and told my brother, I'll talk to you soon, crazy ass. I pulled up in the front of my apartment complex and exited my car. It was a beautiful fall evening. I was surprised there was no one on the street. It was very quiet. Actually, almost perfect. Coming from Baltimore, I wasn't used to that kind of non-activity. It was a bit refreshing. I stood on the front steps for a moment and just took it all in. Afterwards, I climbed the steps to my second floor residence, entered, and looked around at all the boxes everywhere, and took a seat on the couch. I thought about all the work to be done and decided in that instance that all this would not be completed until the weekend. I decided to make a poor man's supper. I was too tired to get into anything else that was going to involve extensive cooking. I put a pot of water on the stove to boil as I heard my doorbell ring. I walked over to the intercom system by the door and pressed for a visual, and wouldn't you know it was my newfound friend, Mr. Jerry. I hit the buzzer to allow him entry to the building. Within a few seconds, he was at the door knocking a sensible knock. I opened the door and immediately turned and walked away to avoid staring at him. I said, hey, Rafiq, what's up? I'm sorry about the missed calls today. The day was crazy, and when I jumped in my car, my brother called. He cut me short. That's okay, Playboy. I told you it don't take me long to get over here, and I was going to a spot on this side and just thought I'd drop in on a nigga. I hope it's all right. I replied, cool. I'm just making a poor man's supper. Would you like some? He chuckled and said, sure. What's in it? I said, trust me. It's good, Rafiq. He looked at me with a glassy kind of look in his eye and said, it's funny, but I like the way you say my name. You got an accent. I said, nah, you're the one with the accent, Pittsburgh boy. As I turned my back and tended to my pot of water that was now at a steady boil, he came up really close behind me and stood still like a statue. I immediately froze as I felt his breath on my neck. He towered over me with his more than 6-foot frame. He leaned down and whispered, nah, it's you with the accent and that soft-ass hands, my dude. Okay. I placed the pot on an unoccupied eye and turned around. As I rotated, Rafiq remained in his descended position, which caused our lips to touch briefly. My stomach filled with butterflies immediately as I felt the supple smoothness and moisture of his full, perfectly sculpted kissers. I quickly covered my mouth with my hand and said, I'm sorry, excuse me. He stood straight at attention and said, for real though? He paused, then continued, Ed J, I'm not. I just stood speechless as he continued, no, I know them lips are as soft as them hands. We both stood staring each other down without a word being spoken for what seemed an eternity, though it was only a few moments. Then I heard my brother's words ringing in my head. Don't make me have to fuck Fiki up. It snapped me from the trance. I said, cool, man. Have a seat and let me finish this. He looked at me puzzled, and after a second or two, he took a seat on one of the stools that sat up at the breakfast nook that rested in the beginning of my kitchen area. I caught the vibe right away that he really was puzzled at my response to his advance. There was awkward silence for the rest of the time that it took me to finish the food. He just sat with his back to me, facing into the living room, playing with his phone. I played right past his sudden withdrawal and presented him with his plate of food as I took the stool right next to him and began eating. He looked at the plate and then began to eat. After a few forkfuls of the dish, he blurted out, "Ed J, what you call this again?" I laughed. Thank goodness the silence was broken. Then I replied, "A poor man's supper." He laughed out loud and said, "For real, dog? What's all in here, my dude?" I replied, "Chicken flavored oodles of noodles with Land O'Lakes American cheese and pepper." He said, "That's it? This shit is so good. Like dinner or some shit, and all it is a pack of noodles and noodles." I can't believe it. He kept shaking his head as he quickly cleared the plate. Looking like a perfectly sculpted 10-cent meal, eating a piece of artwork. I wouldn't tell a lie. The boy is so damn sexy, it was just sickening. As I began to clean up the dishes, Rafiq asked, "So, do you want to hit the spot with me?" I replied, "Can I take a rain check? I got so much to do and I'm already tired as hell." He gave me this sad puppy dog eye look and said, "I'm going to let you pass this time, but I'm used to getting my way. You'll learn that." I laughed and said, "Wow, you're deep." He stood up from his stool and walked toward me. I immediately started getting nervous. He leaned down and bit my earlobe so gently and whispered, "I like to go deep too." I backed up and said, "And you're very forward." He snickered a devilish laugh and said, "I am." He then grabbed me in a full-on embrace and deep kiss and said, "How about I stop back around here around 2:30 and give you a proper welcome to the bird?" I was speechless. As he walked out the door and blew me a kiss from those big, beautiful chocolate lips, I swear, I stood there motionless for 10 minutes after the door closed. And we're going to take a brief intermission. Y'all don't go nowhere. I'm going to show y'all, where y'all at? What we doing? Don't go nowhere. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Almond Delights Reading Corner by way of Mount Bentley Christian Church. Come on in, saints, can'ts, ain'ts, and wants. Welcome to this week's read of Between Pews by yours truly, Mr. James Colwell. Please go over to Amazon.com and download your books today so you can read along with us. No, come on in. Sit back here with us on the back pew as we find out what they doing up there between the pews. Let's enjoy this read. Are you ready? Listen. I hope y'all enjoyed chapter 1 of Between Pews. We are going to get started on chapter 2. It may take us over our time, but I am okay with that at this point. Chapter 2. Welcome to Mount Bentley. For the next few weeks, there was a very heated situation building between myself and Mr. Rafiq Jerry, with the interesting ever-so-present involvement of the unknowing first floor tenant, Miranda. No matter how much I told myself, this is life and it just is what it is, I knew it was dead wrong. And the wrong was resting on my head because I knew for a fact that Rafiq was screwing around with Miranda first. And to make matters worse, she was trying her best to become friends with me, but I kept her at an arm's length. The guilt would surely be too much if we were actually hanging out like good girlfriends. I had declined trips to the mall, a concert, and several invites to grab a bite to eat. I was running out of excuses, but not feelings for Rafiq. As much as I wanted to care less about his existence, It was just impossible. Each night that he came by, I tell myself, this is it. No feelings, just sex and nothing more. Then 2 seconds in, those lips would set my soul afire. He was so good at everything that it always became an emotionally crippling experience. From the moment of nakedness, all answers became yes. Hell yes. And are you kidding? Yes. The worst feeling of all that is attached to the situation comes when I leave the house in the morning and see the moving truck parked out front. Immediately, I know that Rafik has spent the night with Miranda. Even though I've accepted these ridiculous terms, it doesn't make the pill any easier to swallow. Envy and jealousy still gets the chance to kick me in the ass, while meanwhile, Mr. Jerry is having his cake and eating it too. Literally. He is a very sly man that has his operation running very smoothly. But all good things come to an end. I always say, what happens when Miranda sees you coming from up here? And he always says, that's not an issue. I'll take care of it and she won't catch on. When I come see you, I always drive different cars. And besides, she don't even know that you fuck around. She thinks you are cute and shit. I always just tell him, whatever. I just don't want any mess. I can't stand all that. He promises that he's never going to get caught. And I just think to myself, good luck with that. I've been in Pittsburgh maybe a month and a half when one Saturday Miranda invited me to join her at her church the next day, and I obliged. We agreed to meet in front of the complex at 9:30 a.m. the next morning. Miranda threw in a little dig by saying, I couldn't use the devil to get to hang out with you. I figured I'd try baby Jesus and see if you would respond to him and let me get at you. I said, be nice. I've just been very busy with settling into work and unpacking this apartment. But we can definitely take in some good old church tomorrow. She said, yes, indeed. I can't wait to see your fine ass all cleaned up and ready tomorrow. She flashed her perfectly lined eyelashes and sauntered off. I laughed and thought to myself, she is a piece of work, but just as cute as she can be. I got up extra early and made myself a good breakfast and got dressed in my favorite suit. It's a midnight blue Armani suit with a fit that only a master tailor could achieve. I matched it up with a midnight silk shirt and tie, and of course Stacey Adams on foot in midnight blue for a completely perfect look. I felt good and was ready to go and get what word the Lord had for me on this day. I was out front and ready to go at exactly 9:30 a.m. with my midnight blue Versace shades in place. Okay. I was standing out there by myself for a short time, and then out of the door came a vision of chocolate bliss. As I scanned Miranda from her foot up, the sun seemed to glisten on each piece of her as I took her in. Beautifully manicured toes that rested so delicately into a sickening sandal with the highest, spikiest heel that I believe she could find. Soft brown knees that were absolutely free of scars sat perfectly on top of a perfectly shaped calf. Multicolored silk grazed each magnificent curve of womanhood that she possessed with her above-the-knee caftan. Not one strand of hair was out of place, and all that makeup was applied flawlessly. It was so hard to believe that it was so early in the morning. What time did she get up and start getting dressed? Miranda walked up to me and rubbed the lapel on my suit jacket and softly said, I'm about ready to take you back in the building and let you go up under my Bible belt. Shit. I just smiled and gave her a wink. She continued checking me out and walking toward her car as she blurted out, I'll drive and you ride with me. Because Lord knows if you drive and I ride with you, I'm going to have to reapply my lipstick. I burst into laughter as we entered the car and said, cut it out, Miranda. You are a mess. We sped off while the sweet sounds of the tabernacle filled the vehicle. Miranda sang along and it was quite good. Before long, we pulled up to one of the hugest, most gorgeous churches I have ever seen. I got out of the car and just took in the structure and the authenticity of its stained glass windows. It really was a breathtaking building. Miranda seemed to know everyone. She sauntered through, making her presence known, hugging the necks and pecking the cheeks of mostly the male members of the congregation. It didn't take long to notice the disdain of some of the counterparts of those receiving her attention. Eye cuts and rolls were prevalent as we strolled close to the front of her seat, to the front for seats. As I sat down, I continued to take in the sights, crisp new Bibles on each pew, soft organ music being played, white gloves, big hats, and tons of soft chitter-chatter. Very reminiscent of my home church in Maryland. As the service began, the choir was undeniably talented. Their voices filled that huge church almost effortlessly. As the selection drew to a close, a beautiful white robe adorned in slight bits of purple and metallic gold floated into the pulpit. At the bottom was the most beautiful pair of heels in gold with straps delicately wrapped around her ankles. At the top of the robe was way too much hair. We wore about a half a bag of weave from a Diana Ross 80s look. The mound of hair hung literally midway down her back, and as she slowly turned around to face the onlooking, over-anxious crowd, she revealed a RuPaul's Drag Race face of makeup. I said, "Miranda, who's that?" She chuckled and said, "Oh, geez, that's Pastor Pearline Depew. She is the associate minister and the praise and worship leader. Just watch her. She always gets everyone into the spirit of praising." I smiled a brief smile and did as I was told, thinking to myself, let the clown mania begin. I just could tell that something here was going to force me to hold my laughter in. I watched in awe as Pastor Depew swirled into the pulpit and grabbed the microphone and broke into song, very loudly, I might add. "Welcome into this place. Welcome into this broken vessel. Thank you, Jesus." And just like that, she broke out in song and started speaking in tongues and carrying on. When I think about the goodness of the Lord, she began shaking her hair from side to side, wildly and yelling, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus." And then came running back and forth in the pulpit from one side to the other. As she performed her obvious foolishness ritual, the congregation bought in and began hollering out in acceptance of her ridiculous behavior. It just geared her up to move forward with the show. She took a spot in the center of the pulpit and slammed her hands on her hips and yelled, "I feel it! I feel it! I feel my help coming! Yes! Yes, yes, yes! My help coming here!" I am weak. She jumped up and down in place and started to shout and dance at an almost impossible rate of speed. Miranda looked over at me, snickered, and said, "Told you, she a fool. But she gets this church rocking." I had only taken my eyes off of Pastor Depew for a split second, but when I looked back at her, she was proceeding out of the pulpit in a full-on sprint. She ran down the center aisle of the sanctuary at top speed while screaming, "Yes, Lord! Yes, Lord!" She ran back down the right aisle, across the front, up the left, and then returned back down the center aisle. And as she approached the steps to the pulpit, she just collapsed on the steps on all fours. She rolled over on her back and laid out completely and yelled, "Yes, God! You are good! Yes, Savior! Yes, you good!" I was so sure that this went on every Sunday. The biggest reason I believe this is, when she collapsed, not one usher moved to assist her. They have to be used to this going on. She laid on those steps for what had to be 10 minutes, getting herself together and instructing the congregation to offer the Lord a hand clap and praise. The members began clapping and chanting, "Yes, Lord!" After a few moments, Pastor Depew had caught her breath and returned to her feet. She took her place behind the podium on the left side of the pulpit. She raised her hands high and started, "Next to the pulpit, I would like to bring a man, a mighty, mighty man of God. He is ours, sent to us with a blessing from the Most High. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Miss Mount Bentley's very own Pastor Kareem Bentley." In that instant, the lights went as bright as they could. The choir stood to their feet as well as the rest of the congregation. The musicians went into overdrive and all the focus was on the back of the church. On the left side, a door opened and out walked a brown-skinned male that stood about 6 foot, 1 inch tall, with a bald head and very sturdy frame. In unison on the right side, a door opened. A door opened and out walked a light-skinned, sturdy-framed specimen, about 5 foot 11 inch tall, with curly hair in the same cocky walk as the bald guy. They both walked towards each other and met at the center aisle and stopped. You can feel the anticipation building in the sanctuary as the door on the right side reopened and out walked a black robe filled out to perfection, with the frame of an Adonis, with the head of perfectly, freshly twisted dreadlocks, pulled neatly into a ponytail. The statuesque figure moved to the center aisle and began forward to the pulpit, while his New World disciples, or henchmen, as I like to call them, followed by his sides, but ever so slightly behind him. It was like a scene from a movie, and this dude was seriously in a mode that he is the gladiator or the god of this temple. As he made his entrance, all of the onlookers stood and clapped as if it was some ritual. I just looked in awe. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. It was very cult-like. As he passed our pew, I couldn't help but notice that Pastor Kareem Bentley was undeniably one of the most gorgeous men that I had ever laid my eyes on, and yet he looked so familiar to me. I could have sworn that I'd seen him somewhere before. But I just figured maybe I caught him on a magazine article or some kind of advertisement or something. Or maybe it was just a fluke. But what was real is that the Reverend was fine. Miranda whispered to me, "All the hoes in here want a piece of that. But it's not going to happen. His wife has that thing on lock." I smiled and whispered back, "Clink, clink." We chuckled and continued to pay our attention to the service and its odd way of conduct. I had never been to a church like this and had never seen or heard some of the practices that were taking place. At one point, they were asking for offerings in specific denominations. I personally felt like that was a bit much, but I was just visiting. The offering segment of the service was so long that I felt like I was at a visit on Wall Street or at some undercover auction for salvation. I just shook my head and thought, boy, I can't wait to explain this church service to my mom. I'm sure she would be able to explain some of the things that were odd to me. And if she can't, hell, we'll have a good laugh. I did notice that when Pastor Kareem dealt with the congregation, he more or less flirted with them to get what he wanted done. He would shoot them looks to melt them, and it seemed as though they were all under some kind of spell. Even down to the choir director, who was obviously a little light in his loafers. He shot old boy a look, and he knew to come sashaying with a bottle of water. I was really tickled with it, and I said to Miranda, "Damn, is that Sandra chasing your pastor too?" She laughed and said, "There is someone from every corner that is working to get that dick. But that sissy will never get it. He's so dumb." I just said, "Okay." I felt it was time to let that go. As the service grew to a close, I was really ready to go. But Miranda wouldn't leave until she introduced me to Pastor Kareem. As we approached him, I can tell that he was a little under the Miranda spell, as was she under his. She grabbed my hand and said sweetly, "Good afternoon, Pastor." The service was as lovely as ever. I couldn't hardly sit still. The pastor's right eyebrow raised just a little, and he had a slight lustful look in his eye As he responded to my slick but slutty friend, I'm glad you enjoyed my he cleared his throat. The spirit getting up underneath you, sister. It's always good to see your beautiful face on a Sunday morning. She smiled and said, likewise. This is my friend Edwin James. He is new here from Maryland. He's a writer. He extended his hand and took a firm grip on mine, and I immediately felt the magic of Pastor Kareem working on me. His voice shot through me like fire as he said, a writer, huh? Well, it's really nice to meet you. Maybe you will choose us to be your church home while you're here. That would be really nice. I said, we'll see. I thank you for the invitation. I did have a wonderful time this morning. By the way, do you ever come to Maryland, Virginia, or D.C. area? You look so familiar. He said, not for a lot of years now. I used to get down there for a lot of gospel conferences, and I almost spent 1 year at Howard. No telling. We may have crossed paths before. God's people tend to do that, especially before he puts them together to do his work. So you should really consider us at Mount Bentley. You already have one good sign. Then he did it. He flashed a beautiful white smile. I about melted. I said, I will definitely give it some thought. Thank you, Pastor. We stepped out of the way. There was an obvious line forming behind us. As Miranda and I made our way to the door, we were stopped by a voice that rang out. Miriam! Miriam, dear! Miranda grabbed my arm, clenched her teeth, and said, damn. As she stopped and turned, it was Pastor Pearline Pews. She rolled right up and said, how rude, Miriam. You weren't even going to introduce this fine young man to me? Were you planning on keeping him all to yourself as well? She followed the sly comment with an ever so shady chuckle. By this time, Pastor Pews was out of her robe, and she really wasn't a bad-looking woman. Her body was in good condition for her age. She had to be in her mid-40s, just entering cougar stage. Yet, still too much hair, nails, and makeup. Miranda responded to her by sighing so sweetly with a half-baked grin. Listen, Pews. I've told you before, my name is not Miriam, and Edwin introduced himself to you right along when he stood with the rest of the visitors. There is no reason that you needed a personal introduction. Not that I can see. I said to myself, uh-oh, you can smell the catnip in the air. The pastor threw her mound of hair back as if at a Ross concert and stated, I am the associate minister of Mount Bentley, and that does require a significant amount of respect, Melanie. I'm sure if you have parents, you've been taught better than that. Miranda's eyebrows shot up so high on her forehead, I was tempted to try and catch them. She leaned all her way to one side in the sexiest ghetto girl stance you've ever seen and said, let me tell you something. This is the last time we're going to have one of these little petty conversations. I don't bother anyone when I come here, but for some reason, this is the third or fourth time that you feel the need to push your foolishness my way. I don't know what it's about, but I'm telling you, I don't like it. The more I listen to Miranda, you can hear a New Orleans accent spewing from her lips, the madder she got. She continued, and for the record, my name is Miranda, not Melanie and not Miriam. And as far as parents and teachings, I learned everything I needed to know. I'm not so sure who told you that this was a gymnasium and not a sanctuary. I'm just waiting on the weekend that you show your true self and come swinging in on one of these chandeliers, you little sanctified monkey. Pastor Pews got off into a little huff and said, if you didn't always show up with different men, you too could take in the goodness of the Lord and not have people leave you with the juice of the demon between your legs, you hellish little vixen. I interceded, ladies, it's okay. Pastor Pews, it has been a pleasure meeting you this morning, and you look beautiful. Miranda, can we go? Pastor Pews grabbed my arm hard like a witch doctor and said in a cryptic voice, The Lord said, watch them around you with wings. They don't all have feathers. And a bare-winged harlot will fly you straight to hell. Watch yourself, my brother. She's a headed downward for everything and every reason. Miranda said, you crazy, flow rolling, owl running bitch. You are forever quoting something that ain't in the Bible. I don't know who you think you are. Sitting around mad at me because you can't get a man. Try disconnecting from your crazy for a while and maybe someone will want you. As we walked away, the pastor said in the same cryptic tone, have a great day, harlot demon, and may God cover you, my brother. And when we got outside the church, I just followed Miranda in silence. She was walking top speed to the car. When we got there, I stopped her and held her in an embrace. She reluctantly obliged. I whispered, don't worry, Miranda. Only few people heard what was going on. And who even cares? She had no right to do that to you. I could feel that she was calming down. I let her go and opened the door for her and then let myself in the passenger side. She just sat there for a moment and then said, this is just why I don't come every week. Cause I would be done smack one of these clowns or call my gram back home and have her work a root on one of them so deep that they won't be able to pull up their own stockings. I said, yeah, what's that about? I can hear your accent so clear once you got upset. Why do you cover up your accent and how could you do it so well? She responded, people here are so closed-minded that I don't feel like explaining it or dealing with people's preconceived notions of who or how I am. But yes, baby, I'm a girl straight from the bayou. I responded, I love the accent. It's sexy as hell. She said, thank you. And I apologize, but I do have a real temper. But besides all that, how did you like Mount Bentley Christian Church? I said, it was very interesting and full of sights to see, but all jokes aside, I'll definitely attend again. She said, good. Well, welcome to Mount Bentley. And scene. Baby, that was chapter 2 of Between Pews. Honey. By Mr. James Colwell. And I am all the way tickled. Baby, Mr. Rafiq, honey. Listen, I'm going to drop the link if anybody want to come up here and we'll have a discussion. For those of you that are new here and joining us, we have a discussion about the book, the chapters that we read. If you have something to say, if you have constructive criticism, if you have whatever, if you want to come up here and join me, let me know how you like the book. You can come up here. You don't have to show your face. Just don't be showing nothing else. Okay. But come on up here and let me know, or we can just talk about it. You can be down there in the chat. I do thank everybody for joining me. And if you're new here, thank you for joining us. I don't look at the chat, so don't think I wasn't really paying attention to y'all. I just need to get the read out. Okay, uninterrupted. But yes, listen, I am all the way tickled. And I don't get how Miranda, well, I guess I do get how Miranda didn't see her Mr. 6'3", Mr. Rafiq, honey, coming up there to the second floor to throw some more at Mr. Ed J. Baby, I am all the way here for it. I am tickled. And again, disclaimer, honey, there was cussing. There will be cussing in the book, but y'all know Miss Almond Brown don't normally cuss. But I want to give you all the essence of the book. And I want to thank Mr. James Colwell, a.k.a. Spill It Boy, for allowing us to read his book over here at the Almond Delights Reading Corner by way of Mount Bentley Christian Church of Pittsburgh. But if y'all don't have anything else to contribute, I just want to say, just know who you sleeping with. Okay. Know who you sleeping with. You know what I'm saying? But Miranda don't care. Miranda came in to his apartment looking for a piece of meat, and she got what she wanted. So, hey, and apparently pieces of meat like Miranda, clearly, because Pastor Pews don't like the fact that Miranda get all the men's, honey. Her milkshake bring all the boys to the yard and to the altar at the church. So yeah. I want to thank y'all for joining me back here on the back pew, honey. We ain't sitting up front because we got to observe what they doing up there between the pews. We got to sit back here in the back. But little church announcements. Every Monday we will come back and read. We will come back and read 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for the ones that have shared the video. If you would like to listen to this again, you can always catch the replay, or you can catch it over on my podcast. And all the links are in the description bar under the video. The links to his book, to this book, as well as his other books. He published 5 books, so this is not his only one. If you guys want to go check out his other books, feel free to go do so. If you want to go subscribe to his channel, the link is down in the description bar below, as well as anything else you want to know is in the description box, if I forget to tell y'all. Okay, but I appreciate you guys for joining us. If you have not hit the like button, why? If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, why not? I mean, you came here to the end. So hit the subscribe button and then hit the notification so you can get all the notifications when I upload. And listen, I am tickled. So you guys will be, listen, I did not read this book beforehand, so all of my reactions to the book are genuine. I am tickled, and I am tickled. I just say that. I am tickled. So I hope you guys enjoyed this read. We will be back next week, and it's normally an hour, so this is perfect. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you guys for subscribing. Thank you for interacting in the chat if you have. Thank you for the love that you've given me, and I appreciate y'all for it. So y'all come back next week for our next read of Between Pews, honey. Look, all the way between the pews. Because I am here for it. But I love you guys with the love of God. And there is what? Nothing you can do about it. I love y'all. Bye. Thank you all for joining another episode of Almond Delights Reading Corner. I pray that you enjoyed yourself and you're relaxing your mind, in your body, and in your spirit. Come back and join us again next week as we continue our reading. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Be blessed and enjoy your evening.